My name is Aurora. I'm 34, Director of Product Development at a pharmaceutical company in San Diego. Each day passed in the relentless rhythm of work, and I believed that behind me was a steady home, with the husband I had loved for nearly a decade. Ethan, 3 years older than me, a civil engineer, always claimed he wasn't much of a talker. I used to find that a charming kind of calm, but that silence became a wall, and I couldn't tell when I had been pushed out of his world. Dinner with the engineering team tonight? A new hire just moved in from Dallas. Gotta welcome him. I'll be home late. That text came in at 6:13 p.m. on a Tuesday. I read it while still at the office, halfway through an internal report. I didn't question it. Ethan always had a reason. Always timely, always proper. Always in the role of the perfect husband. Until the truth cracked open from the tiniest detail. A misdirected email, a careless CC line. 7:42 p.m. on a Thursday, while checking work emails on my phone in line for coffee, I noticed my name copied in a strange thread. Subject: Friday's lunch at Verona, confirmed for 12:30. I nearly ignored it, until I saw the sender. Amanda. From HR at Ethan's company. She was thanking him for hosting the small lunch team at Verona, a pricey Italian restaurant downtown that Ethan once dismissed as a place for people who like to show off. The problem was, last Friday Ethan told me he was flying to Phoenix for a project meeting, and clearly that small lunch team didn't include me. I sat frozen in my car for several more minutes, the phone still glowing in my hand like undeniable proof. A breeze slipped through the half-cracked window and made me shiver. Not from the cold, but because something deep inside me had just collapsed. I used to wonder what a truly broken heart felt like. Now I know. It's not a sharp, blinding pain, it's an endless, hollow hum. Like every breath you take has been stolen, while the rest of the world keeps moving, indifferent and loud. I had trusted him, blindly, to the point of embarrassment now, remembering every time Ethan said, "I love you." It's just work that's been overwhelming lately. I remember my birthday last year. He called close to 8 p.m., said the contractor had issues and he couldn't leave the site. I ate cake alone, sent him a selfie with a forced smile. He replied, "You look beautiful, rain check tomorrow." I thought I understood sacrifice, that it was what held a marriage together. But now, I felt more like the lone guard of a fortress no one lived in anymore. I didn't call Ethan, didn't confront him, didn't scream. Instead, I sat silently in my car, staring at that short email like a fragment rising from the ocean floor. I knew it was just the surface, and I needed to look deeper. That night, I came home later than usual. Ethan was already asleep. The bathroom light cast a soft glow across his face. Peaceful, innocent, or at least pretending to be. I stood there for a long time. Didn't wake him. Didn't say a word. I no longer believed I knew the man lying in the bed we once called home. I don't remember exactly how I drove to the investigator's office. I just remember that Monday afternoon, the rain was cold, and the windshield blurred with heavy droplets. I sat across from a woman in her 50s, eyes sharp like surgical steel, a thin black tablet resting on the table. "My name is Carla Monroe. I won't promise you what you want to hear, but I will find the truth," she said plainly. "I'm not here to be comforted, I need proof," I replied, firm. Carla took exactly 4 days. On Friday morning, she emailed me a file titled, Report 6724A, minus Ethan Black. I opened it in my office, locked the door, lowered the blinds, and gripped the mouse with trembling fingers. Each photo that appeared cut deeper than any blade could. First photo: Ethan leaving his company parking lot at 12:28 p.m. on Friday, dressed sharper than usual. Second, he stopped at a flower shop in Pacific Beach. A bouquet of white tulips, cradled like the most important item of the day. Third, a woman stepped out of a silver BMW. She hugged Ethan, cheek to cheek. That smile. It wasn't unfamiliar. I had seen it in a project photo before. It was Lauren Bell, 32, marketing director from a partner company Ethan worked with last year. Fourth, the two of them entering Bianco. I had once suggested it for our 8th anniversary. Ethan refused, said it was all show, no soul. They sat close. Ethan's hand rested on the back of her chair. Their wine glasses touched lightly. He looked relaxed, not a hint of guilt. But what broke me wasn't the photos. It was Carla's final note. Item recovered, Thursday, 3:47 p.m. Subject: Lauren Bell received a gift box from Ethan Black in the company lobby. Security footage shows a Tiffany logo clearly visible on the packaging. She put on the bracelet immediately. I froze, because just a week earlier I had caught Ethan browsing for that bracelet on his laptop. When I entered the room, he quickly closed the browser. "What were you looking at?" I asked. He smiled. "Secret. You'll see soon." I thought it was for our re-engagement celebration, something we had talked about after a rough patch. I even planned a surprise dinner at the restaurant we loved back in college. I was that foolish. It was a silver bracelet with aquamarine stone. Simple, classic, expensive but understated. Exactly my style, and Ethan knew that. He used what I loved to impress someone else. It wasn't just physical betrayal. It was a violation of everything personal between us. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, holding the fitness tracker Ethan gave me last Christmas. "So, you won't forget your health goals," he said. I wore it for 8 months, thinking it was thoughtful. Now I knew. It was a cheap utilitarian gift, while he was picking out elegant, meaningful ones for another woman. I took it off, placed it on the bathroom counter, and looked into the mirror. The woman staring back at me had dark circles under her eyes, dry lips and hollow cheeks from sleepless nights. But in her eyes, something had shifted. No more hope. Only a quiet flame, waiting for its chance to rise. I printed the entire report, slipped it into a black folder, locked it in my office drawer, and stuck a note on top. For the final day. I didn't call Ethan. Didn't confront him. Because this time, I wasn't going to be the humiliated wife. I was going to be the woman who planned her final move with precision. And Lauren Bell, she had no idea that her upcoming birthday would include a surprise guest. Not me. But the people she believed were on her side. Forever. I would be the one directing the entire reveal with the calm of someone who had endured too much to still. I opened Carla's email on a sunny but bitterly cold Tuesday morning. A single line appeared on the screen. Attached is contact info from Equinox Gym records, Lauren Bell's emergency contact, her parents. I didn't know why Carla thought this detail mattered, but when I saw 2 phone numbers and a Santa Barbara address, something inside me went still. Not my heart, just the part of me that used to brace for disappointment. It had shut off completely. I sat in my office a long while, not touching the now cold coffee. Then I picked up the phone. I called the first number, 4 rings. A woman's voice answered. "Hello?" I took a deep breath. "Hi. Is this Mrs. Linda Bell?" "Yes." "Who's calling?" "My name is Aurora Black. I might be the last person you want to hear from right now. But there's something you need to know. It's about your daughter, Lauren." There was silence for a few seconds, then her voice dropped. "What's wrong? Is she okay?" "Yes, she's fine, but the man she's dating is my husband, Ethan Black, and I have proof." The air on the line thickened. Then came a sharp inhale. "I'm sorry." "What did you say?" "We're still legally married, living together, on paper. And in practice, Ethan and Lauren have been seeing each other for at least a year. I have photos, videos, financial records, everything." "Oh my God," she whispered. "She told us Ethan was a senior executive, divorced, that he'd been cheated on. We felt sorry for him." I clenched the phone tighter, bit my lip. "I don't blame your family. But I think you deserve to know." There was the sound of a chair shifting behind her, and then a man's voice cut in. "Linda, who's on the phone?" She answered softly. "A woman. She says Ethan is her husband." Another heavy silence. Then the man's voice again, calm and firm. "We need to meet her. We're flying to San Diego this week." I furrowed my brow. "For business?" "No, for Lauren's birthday. She thinks we can't make it, but we've already booked a table at Les Jardins. You know the place?" "Yes, the French restaurant in Del Mar. Takes 3 months to get a reservation. Ethan once called it too flashy. I'd suggested it for our anniversary last year. Linda cut in, voice low but sharp. Aurora, I don't even know how to apologize. I never imagined being pulled into something like this. I never imagined making a call like this either, I said with a dry, bitter laugh. But I do have a proposal. I had no idea where I found the composure for what I said next. How about we turn that dinner into a real surprise? Linda was silent, then let out a short laugh. Not joyful, but the kind of laugh a mother makes when she realizes her child has stepped into something deeply wrong. What do you want? Nothing. I just want to be there. I want to see Ethan's face when he sees me sitting with Lauren's family. And I want Lauren to see the man she trusted was never divorced. She sighed, but didn't say no. We'll be there on time. The table is set for 8. Lauren thinks it's a small dinner with colleagues. We'll play along until you need us to speak up. Thank you for listening, for not looking away. I'll bring both her brothers, they warned her. She didn't listen. Maybe now she will. I ended the call, heart pounding in my chest. Not because I was getting revenge, but because I was no longer alone in the truth. That night, Ethan came home late. Like always. I was reading in the armchair. He leaned down, kissed my cheek and asked softly, "You got plans this Friday night?" I closed my book and smiled. I do, a very special dinner. 3 days before Lauren Bell's birthday dinner, I began my preparation phase. Every detail, every step, every layer of silence was planned like I was heading into a courtroom where I was the witness, the prosecutor, and the one who would decide the verdict. The first thing I did was go to the bank. I had a separate savings account that my mother once advised me to keep from the very first day of marriage. Not to hide anything, but to survive if needed, she had said. For 10 years I deposited into it and never once withdrew. I transferred my entire salary from the past 3 months into that account. I closed the banking app, my hand still trembling slightly. In that moment I knew for sure, emotionally, I had already left this marriage. The rest was just paperwork. That afternoon, I called a lawyer named Maureen Castillo, someone Carla had mentioned in her report. A sharp divorce attorney who had once handled a major asset split between a logistics company CEO and his wife, of 11 years, who had also been betrayed. "Do you have documentation yet?" Maureen asked after I gave her the basic rundown. "I have all the photos, videos, financial records, even footage from our home security cameras. Ethan brought Lauren into our bedroom." Her tone dropped. "With that much evidence, I believe I can get Ethan to agree to nearly any terms. Do you want this done quietly or publicly?" I paused for a few seconds, then answered without hesitation. "Publicly. But not through media, through presence, in front of the people he lied to." She gave a small chuckle. "Then let me prepare the papers, just give me the date." "Friday evening." "Done. I'll have someone file the petition Friday morning and the paperwork will be served to Ethan on Monday." I hung up the phone. Thursday night, I stayed late at the office, personally combing through every file Carla had sent. I backed up all images and videos from my phone and laptop onto a USB drive, not to blast them online, but to have ammunition in case Ethan pushed back. In a cloud folder labeled Tax Files 2020, which Ethan assumed I'd never touch, I found nearly 200 hidden photos of him with Lauren, dating back to their earliest encounters. One picture showed him holding her on the armchair I bought from West Elm, a candle glowing behind them. The one I ordered from Paris that Ethan once complained smelled too strong. I downloaded everything, no more shaking hands. Friday morning, I called in to take the day off. I went to my usual salon in La Jolla at 8 a.m. "Special occasion?" the stylist asked as she curled my hair. "Yes, I want to look like a woman who's just been reborn," I replied. I chose a deep pomegranate red lipstick, smoky eyes and matte reddish-brown nails. My hair was softly curled and left loose around my shoulders. Nothing too flashy. Just enough for people to look and not look away. Back home, I opened a velvet purple box tucked in the bottom of my closet. A sapphire pendant from my grandmother, set in white gold. I hadn't worn it since her funeral. But today, I needed something to remind me I came from women who never bowed when betrayed. I wore a form-fitting red dress, slightly backless with a slit along one side. The same dress I had planned to wear on our 10-year anniversary, until Ethan canceled last minute, claiming a construction emergency. At exactly 7 p.m., I received a message from Linda Bell. "We've arrived at the restaurant. Lauren hasn't seen us. My sons, Matt and Dylan, are in position. I replied, I'll arrive at 7:50 just as Lauren settles in. Thank you for everything. I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse, and stepped out the door. I arrived at exactly 7:50 p.m., right on schedule. Le Jardin glowed brilliantly by the shore in Del Mar, golden light reflecting through the tall glass windows. The scent of sea breeze mingled with herbs as I stepped out of the car. I inhaled deeply, adjusted the hem of my red dress, and walked through the doors as if I were stepping onto the main stage of my life. Matt, Lauren's younger brother, stood near the entrance and recognized me instantly. He nodded slightly, his voice low and steady. She's seated in the center of the room, next to Ethan. My parents are about to come out of the waiting lounge. I nodded and my eyes locked with Sophia, my trusted colleague, who was already seated at the bar as promised. She raised her wine glass and gave me a subtle nod, ready to hit record if needed. The server's voice was soft as he led me through rows of tables glowing under candlelight. And then I saw them. Ethan was smiling, that same smile I once believed was mine alone. He was saying something that made Lauren tilt her head and giggle, her hand resting lightly on his wrist. Ethan wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled, and the Seiko watch I gave him for our anniversary was clearly visible on his wrist. I walked straight to the table, no hesitation. "Happy birthday, Lauren," I said, loud enough for the entire table to turn. Ethan's head snapped toward me. In that split second, all expression drained from his face. His eyes widened, pupils contracted, and his skin went pale. "Aurora!" Lauren frowned, scanning my face. "Sorry, do we know each other?" "Oh, Lauren, I'm Aurora Black." I smiled, then turned to Ethan. "And he is still my husband. On paper, under the law. And in reality." The tension at the table grew thick. At that moment, Lauren's family appeared behind me. "Mom? Dad?" Lauren gasped, face draining of color. What are you doing here?" Linda didn't address her daughter right away. Instead, she looked at Ethan, then at me. "Thank you for telling the truth. I thought we came here to celebrate our daughter's birthday, but instead, we've witnessed a deception." Douglas. Lauren's father growled. "Ethan, you told us you were divorced, that your ex-wife was unstable, a cheater. You sat at our table, ate our food, and posed as a decent man." "I can explain," Ethan stammered, shooting up from his chair. "Aurora, this isn't what you think." I raised a hand. "No more lies, I have proof of everything." I opened my purse, pulled out the USB, and placed it on the table. Photos, videos, financial records. And a fun bonus, a receipt from Pacific Breeze Resort, paid with your company card, Ethan, from the Bellwave project, a card I co-signed. Lauren shook her head, backing away. "No, you told me you'd cut all ties with the company, that your finances were separate." I looked at her. "You're not some innocent victim, Lauren. Last April you called my landline. I picked up. You asked, 'Is Ethan home?' and hung up right after. You knew who I was. And you chose to continue the relationship for a year." Lauren opened her mouth to respond, but the look in Linda's eyes silenced her. Matt spoke through gritted teeth. "You brought him to your graduation, Lauren. You looked the whole family in the eye and said he was a good man." Ethan tried to salvage the moment. I just wanted what was best for both of you. I never meant to hurt anyone." "Hurt?" I laughed. "What were you doing when you brought this woman into our bed while I was at the conference in Denver? What were you doing when I was still trying to hold this marriage together and you used company money to pay for hotel rooms, flights, even that Tiffany birthday gift for Lauren?" The whispers had begun to spread across the restaurant. A server quietly backed away, tray of wine still in hand. "What do you want?" Ethan turned to me, his face flushed from both rage and humiliation. "I don't want anything. I filed for divorce this morning. You'll receive the papers on Monday. And I've prepared all the evidence I need to bring to the board if you try to touch a single asset under my name." Lauren turned and walked away from the table without saying a word. Linda stood and followed her daughter. Douglas, his eyes still locked on Ethan, simply said, "We'll see each other again, but not at a dinner table." I gave a slight nod, looking Ethan straight in the eyes one last time. "I hope you remember this dinner more than any other birthday." Then I turned and walked away. The birthday candles were still flickering at the far end of the table, but no one sang, no one clapped. Only the truth remained, quietly illuminated by candlelight, irrefutable, unshakable. I walked out of the restaurant, heels echoing with purpose against the marble floor. Behind me the murmurs grew louder, followed by stares. Not because of how I looked, but because I had walked through the storm and emerged unbroken. Outside, the ocean breeze swept through my hair, but I didn't shiver. I had no intention of letting the footage spread. Sophia had recorded it only in case Ethan tried to deny everything. But somehow, maybe from a nearby guest or a server, a separate recording had already been uploaded by the time I got home. The next morning, a video titled "Birthday Blow-Up, Wife Walks In, Mistress Stunned" had already hit over 60,000 views on an anonymous account. By the weekend, it had gone viral on Reddit, TikTok, and several cheater-exposed channels. One top comment read, "She didn't need to cause a scene, she just showed up." And the truth exploded on its own. People started calling it the Del Mar Reckoning. A quiet purge, but relentless. I didn't respond to any reporters, nor did I post a single status about what had happened. I simply forwarded the clip to Attorney Moraine. 4 hours later, Ethan called. As I didn't pick up. On Monday, he officially received the divorce papers. His attorney replied in less than 48 hours with a surprisingly cooperative tone. Maybe Ethan had started to feel the weight of that storm cloud hanging above him, especially when his company, Black Engineering and Partners, suddenly received an internal audit request from 3 major investors. I wasn't behind it, but I didn't stop it either. 2 weeks after that night at Le Jardin, I moved out of the house in Claremont. I didn't take much, just a few boxes of books, some family photos, my grandmother's necklace, and the cherrywood coffee table I bought with my first bonus. I rented a small apartment near Mission Bay, not big, but bright, breezy, and quiet. The living room window looked out over the ocean, where every morning I brewed coffee and listened to the waves. 3 weeks later, I received an email from Lauren Bell. The subject line was simple, "If you'll allow me." I read it 3 times before replying, inviting her to meet at a small cafe in Carlsbad where no one would recognize us. Lauren arrived 5 minutes late. No makeup, no trendy blazer, no Tiffany necklace. She wore a loose beige sweater, her hair in a messy bun, her eyes more tired than I expected. "I knew," she said the moment she sat down, "I knew he had a wife, just not right away." I didn't react, just nodded. "He told me you were depressed, distant. That you only cared about work, that he had tried to save the marriage but you weren't the woman he fell in love with anymore." I stayed silent. "At first I believed him," Lauren whispered. "Then I started noticing cracks, but every time I asked, he had an answer. Sometimes he cried. And I thought, if a man cries, surely he's not lying." I smiled bitterly. "I used to think that too." She nodded. "When my family turned on me, that's when I realized how blind I had been, not just out of love, but pride. I didn't want to believe I could be fooled like that." For a long while, neither of us said a word. Eventually I spoke. "I didn't come here to hear an apology. I don't need you to blame yourself. I lived in Ethan's illusion for almost 10 years. I know exactly what that feels like." Lauren looked up. "Thank you for saying it out loud. For not letting me keep living in that illusion. Sometimes truth isn't meant to destroy, it's meant to free." 1 year after that night at Le Jardin, I celebrated my 35th birthday in a place no one would have guessed, the backyard of my new apartment, just a few blocks from the ocean, under soft string lights and the distant sound of waves. No stage, no 3-tiered cake, no expensive champagne. Just the people who had stood by me when everything fell apart. Sophia, the small team from my old company who shielded me from rumors, old Mr. Burney downstairs, the neighbor who taught me how to install kitchen cabinets, and my mother, who quietly flew to San Diego every month for half a year just to sit next to me in silence. We had dinner outside, drank cheap white wine, listened to an old college playlist, and shared stories that didn't need conclusions. I wore a simple olive green silk dress, no bracelet on my wrist, no necklace around my neck. I didn't need symbols to prove I had made it through. Around 9 p.m., while I was laughing hard at Sophia's ridiculous story about a terrible date with a cat-loving attorney, My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Happy birthday. I know I don't deserve to say this, but I'm in therapy, and I'm truly sorry for everything. I don't expect forgiveness. Just hope you know I finally see it. Ian. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then turned it off. I didn't save the number. I didn't reply. Silence for me now isn't suppression, it's a choice. I don't need Ethan to suffer, to regret, or to change just to validate that I was right. I'm no longer in his play. I stepped off that stage long ago and left the script behind without looking back. My birthday ended with a hug from my mother. She whispered in my ear, "You don't even know how strong you are." I smiled and shrugged. "I'm not sure it's strength, Mom. Maybe I just had nothing left, so I stood up." She held me tighter. The following week, I signed up for a small landscaping design class, something I'd dreamed of back in college but always postponed for the sake of being practical. I wanted to understand how people arrange plants, light, water, how they create spaces that breathe again even after being trampled. At the first class, when asked to describe my ideal garden, I wrote, "A place that's not perfect, but everything in it exists for a reason, and nothing needs to apologize for surviving." I folded the paper and slipped it into my pocket. I'm done shrinking myself to fit the comfort of a man who lied to everyone, including himself. I didn't walk out of the darkness to win, I walked out to see the path clearly. My story isn't a tragedy. It's a journey back to myself. I've loved, I've trusted, I've been betrayed, but I didn't break. The truth hurt, but it freed me. And in the end, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to win. I just needed a life. No longer distorted by lies. Now, I'm not chasing perfection. Only truth, peace, and the right to be wholly myself. What do you think about Aurora's journey? Would you choose to face things the way she did? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and emotional family stories.